Okay, go ahead. You have 2 minutes, either Sheikh Omar or Anjum.
The Bible has written really not in English language, so I'm going to pass it to Anjum. Is relevant to answer these questions. I did not hear it. Anjum.
Anjum?
Sheikh Omar, I don't think I was completely understanding the call either, actually, to tell you the truth, Sheikh. But I can add something, actually. You know, I studied my own understanding of ahadith from the Sheikh, and obviously the Sheikh, he has too much to say on the topic, but I can add some other collections from the life of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam for you. You know, Robert Spencer didn't even deal with the last ones that I quoted, and neither did David Wood. But if you want, there's some more. We can talk about the first political document, the Sahifat of Wathika al-Nabawiyya, the first, if you like, treatise of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the collection of Sa'id bin Jubair, the collection of Abi Huraira, the collection of Hammam ibn Murabbih. There are so many collections which were in the time of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of them documented, all of them referenced by historians, and yet you see Robert Spencer cannot even bring himself to even mention them, because basically his book doesn't talk about them. They only talk about Christians, who have a political agenda against Islam. And that is why you see, because the Quran is the thing which has been preserved, and that is the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is therefore the miracle which remains a challenge for mankind to do a chapter similar. Now, that must be in the Arabic language. It must maintain the grammar, the style, the meaning. And, the shortest chapter of the Quran is only 3 verses. And, it's not something which is, somebody has to spend a long time if he wants to mention 3 verses. He can try it in the Arabic language, but I think you will find, as people have found over the last 1,433 years, or even more, that they are not able to match that challenge, and therefore it remains, and therefore we continually advise you to accept Islam and to become a Muslim.
Sorry, we're gonna move along, and I think we have an opportunity for one, or actually, I'm sorry, John.
No, we have
go ahead and respond. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that these documents that you're referring to, the Constitution of Medina, and we could say the Pact of Umar and others, they actually have no historical foundation. There's no record that they existed at all in the 7th century, and I would challenge you to produce any reference to them in the 7th century or any 7th century manuscript of them. We don't hear about them until the history of Al-Tabari in the 9th century. And so to say these things, Muhammad did these things and therefore he must have existed and these things are obvious, here again, you're relying on very late material that is highly tendentious and has no foundations in earlier sources.
Okay, good. We have Abraham next. Go ahead, Abraham, and just please, concise questions. We're running out of time. What is your question, sir, right now?
Okay. Hi, my name is Adrian, not Abraham.
I'm sorry.
I have a question to the Islam team about the challenge. They said you have to produce a surah that's like, but it also has to be in Arabic. And when somebody tried to do it in English, you look down on it like it's somehow less worthy. Could you please confirm for all the viewers that I've heard that many Islamists, many Muslims all over the world, they don't understand Arabic. They read the Quran in translation. Could you please confirm if that's true or not? And, when you see these Muslims memorizing the Quran, a lot of them don't even know what the heck they're talking about. They memorize it like robots.
All right. Let them answer the question. 2 minutes. 2 minutes, Anjum.
Shagama.
Can answer this question is easy, it's no problem. I don't speak English that good the way you speak English, but nobody said to me that is Shakespeare. He's you speak English very good. That he's English. Nobody can beat it. So the fact you don't know Arabic, it doesn't mean Arab who speak Arabic who are not Muslims really cannot really take the challenge. So for me, no one from the Arab, Christian or Jews or atheists or communists did one chapter similar. That is our argument. Where the Quran comes from, rationally, if you see some things exist and no one claim it, you will say where it come from, to whom it belong to, etc. So what I'm talking about now, I don't want to go through all these historical things because the time is not really enough, and I will leave it to Anjum to answer if he got any other points.
Anjum?
What I can add, in fact, to what I've said before is that, I've watched in fact, Robert Spencer doing an interview where he's promoting his book. And this idea of like, no one up until 125 years after the death of a prophet, ever wrote anything. The first mention is after 60 years, 640 years. What Robert Spencer has actually done is he's chosen these arbitrary dates. These dates, they don't have any significance. They don't have any kind of historical reference. The only reference they have is from the Orientalists, among the Christians, who have as their main purpose to try to undermine Islam and to undermine the divine texts. The proof, in fact, that Islam is not going to be undermined is that it remains the fastest growing ideology in the world today. In Europe, by their own standards, the statisticians are saying that, maybe in 30 or 40 years, the Muslims will be the majority in Europe. In fact, they are concerned that once again, the Sharia will be implemented as it was before in Spain, in France, in parts of, Switzerland, Austria, in Greece, in Rhodes, in Crete. If Islam had no basis and the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam never existed, I think that Robert Spencer needs to ask
we are finished with the 2 minutes. We have 1 minute for each of the gentlemen here to respond.
Well, Islam is rapidly growing, therefore it's true. Communism grew fast, therefore communism is true. And suppose we shift the argument a little bit. The largest religion in the world, Christianity, therefore it's true. What kind of absurd argument is this? The only reason Muslims use these kind of arguments is because they have to, because they can't defend anything with serious argumentation. Now, our caller, to answer his question, actually hit the nail right on the head. To say that God, as his evidence for Islam, gave an argument that only works if you happen to be trained in classical Arabic is insulting to God. It's degrading to God. It's saying he gave this argument and only a couple of people in the entire world can understand it. That's just plain silly. But if we want to go to actual Arabic scholars, Gert Puin is certainly an Arabic scholar. He said on average every fifth verse of the Quran is incoherent. It doesn't make any sense. But of course Anjem and Omar would say otherwise, but they can't exactly claim not to be biased, can they?
Okay, we're going to go ahead and we have another caller. I believe it's Sam. Sam, just your question. What is it and who is it directed to?
Okay, directed to the Christian. And on the Muslim side, they say that the Quran is perfectly preserved with confidence. I never hear any Christians say that the Bible is perfectly preserved. So if Christians do believe that the Bible is perfectly preserved, can you just please explain why?
Great question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, as Christians, if by perfect preservation you mean down to the letter, no variance at all in history, no, Christians don't believe that. I don't know any Christians who do believe that. But that's because we actually look at the evidence. We respect the evidence. If you put a manuscript in front of me and put another manuscript in front of me, and there's a word difference or something like that, then I say, okay, it hasn't been perfectly down to the letter preservation. But that's never been a Christian argument. We believe God inspired the Bible, but after that, if men are copying it down, if I could copy the Bible right now and make a mistake. So no, we don't have perfect down to the letter preservation, but neither do Muslims. Any book that's copied by human beings is going to be subject to error by scribes and so on. The difference between Christians and Muslims is we look at the manuscripts and we're honest with the evidence, and you can go into any Christian bookstore in this country and open it up and find critical editions that discuss the variants, which, by the way, are usually spelling differences, like spelling John with one N or two N's, things like that. But there are more significant differences, but we discuss them and we look at them and we examine them and we never deny the evidence. And you turn to Islam, you have all of the Muslim sources. I'm talking Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, the rest of Sahih Sitta, the Sirah literature, commentaries talking about all these differences, and you see from Sheikh Omar and Anjem, they don't exist. Well, here they are right in front of you. They don't exist. Well, what about all this evidence that they do exist? They don't exist. What about Aisha and Abu Musa and Ibn Umar and all of your early Muslims saying over and over again like a beating drum that chapters came up missing, large sections of chapters came up missing, individual verses came up missing, words and phrases came up missing, all of this from your most reliable authorities. Never happened because the Quran says it didn't. So what we have, if you compare the sides, one side is constantly looking to the evidence, making rational decisions based on the evidence, and the other side, whether it's historical or otherwise, is constantly denying the obvious evidence right in front of their faces that should tell you something about the two sides.
Thank you. We have 1 minute for a rebuttal. You go ahead and answer that, Anjem or Sheikh. You have 1 minute. Anjum, if you'd like.
Sheikh Omar.
Would you like to respond to that answer?
Okay. Look, you are saying now Muhammad doesn't exist. That means all your publications for the last, for the last now maybe 5 years about Muhammad and Aisha, about occupied women.
Anjum, would you mind jumping in? I'm sorry, we have this trouble with this transmission.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, what the Sheikh is saying that, you have a whole program here dedicated to attacking the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You have reams of books written by Orientalists talking about the life of the Prophet. When he married Aisha radiallahu anha, about his own, expeditions, the whole of his life, and the whole of your program and the whole of the attack has been traditionally from the Christians to attack the Prophet himself. And now suddenly, somebody is saying that he never actually existed. I mean, this is so self-contradictory. It's incredible. I mean, nobody really is sane, or anyone with any kind of logical or sound reasoning would accept this completely contradictory stance of Robert Spencer and David Wood. These two people who are today sitting on the same side are themselves saying that tomorrow they're going to be debating with each other because they don't agree with each other. David Wood believes that Muhammad existed. Robert Spencer believes that he doesn't exist. You can't even make your own minds up, let alone debate with Muslims. So I think get your own house in order, and then after that, we can have a decent debate.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, we have one last question from John. John, just your question, and who is it directed to?
Yeah, this is for Anjum and Omar.
Okay.
Given your argument tonight, if I do not know Arabic, do I have any objective reason to believe that Muhammad ever existed?
Anjum.
Question.
Thank you. Anjum, would you like to ask?
Let's see if we can get Sheikh Omar on the line.
Questions, I hear you. Anjum, go ahead.
Yes, Sheikh.
John, are you still with us? Could you ask that question again?
I'll ask the question again. I said for Anjum and Omar, given your argument tonight, if I do not know Arabic, do I have any objective reason to believe that Muhammad ever existed? If I don't know Arabic, given your perfect Quran argument.
Gentlemen.
Yes, if you don't know Arabic, obviously you will never be able to taste the challenge and taste the miracle. Because all what happened, you see, I don't know Arabic, but the Arab Christians, the Arab Jews, they know Arabic very well, better than the Arab Muslims. And yet they say to you, nobody can do one chapter. Seminars, therefore, man has no finger on it. If I give you a cup of water, I put my finger on it, you'll never drink it. So you want to have something pure to drink it. And the same thing. I will leave it to Anjum to answer you if anything really remain he want to answer.
Anjum.
To that even if you cannot speak Arabic, you can see from the Quran that there are so many things in the Quran which there's no way for someone in the 7th century to know. And as someone who studied medicine at one point, I can tell you the development of the embryo is something that people discovered recently. Yet if you have a look at Moore's Anatomy, for example, a famous American doctor, he includes verses of the Quran. Because why? Because there's no way for someone to know that in the 7th century. That is something that people discovered recently, which is proof that he must have been divinely inspired. And I can go on about many verses of the Quran which agree with what we understand now, and which prove in fact that he must have been someone who received revelation, and therefore this proves the authenticity of the Quran and as well the messengership of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Thank you. And we have one more minute here for the gentleman to respond to that answer.
Yeah, I actually wanted to address something Anjum said a minute ago, that what we're saying is contradictory. I actually have written a biography of Muhammad earlier, The Truth About Muhammad, that's based on Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Sa'd and Bukhari and Muslim and the other early sources. And that is a representation of what the earliest sources say about Muhammad. And now in Did Muhammad Exist, I have examined the historical value of those sources and find them wanting. There's no contradiction in this at all. It's very important for non-Muslims to know what Muslims believe about Muhammad. And for example, that he did marry a 9-year-old, consummate a marriage with a 9-year-old when he was 54, and that this makes child marriage normative for Muslims and allowable for Muslims. Whether or not Muhammad actually existed or did this, this is something that's important to know. But there's no contradiction in this whatsoever. There is the distinction between what Muslims believe about Muhammad and then whether those things actually have any basis in fact at all. And now David can respond to the rest.
Quickly.
Well, I said as soon as I began speaking that I do believe Muhammad existed, but I don't believe Muslims can prove it because of the absurd methodologies that they would use. I think we've seen a very good example of that. The Quran says it, therefore Muhammad existed when the Quran is filled with errors. I think we've seen this. Can I do better? That remains to be seen, but obviously I was right that Muslims cannot even prove Muhammad's existence. How can we ever believe in Islam?